Hello everybody, welcome to another Monday. This one is the 9th of July 2018. I am as always Dr. and I'm here to ramble a bit about my miniature painting. Hopefully not as long as last week. Last week was a record breaker. Anyway, without too much preamble, let's get into this. We have 5 Reaper Bones minis here. They are Darrow, which are crazy underground living dwarves. I mean, there's a bunch of evil dwarves in the D&D universe. Perhaps most commonly known as the Dwergar, or well, it should really be pronounced Dvergar. It's simply the Norse word for dwarves, slightly altered. Anyway, but maybe not as many people know about the Darrow. I mean, the Dvergar are simply evil. And I think they're devil worshippers or something. But the Darrow have gone insane from being slaves of the Mind Flayers, I believe. Is it the lore? Maybe the Dvergar were too? I forget which version is which. Never mind. Anyway, how do you paint Darrow? Because in the artwork and descriptions, they're just white-skinned and white-haired and white-eyed. Makes them look blind. But having just white, you know, you can't see anything. So I decided to make it just slightly pale and grayish, like a light gray colored hair, and skin that is a very pale skin tone with a grayish cast to it. Because, as better painters than me have pointed out, you can't really paint skin without some sort of orange or red tones in it, because the eye, or well, rather the brain, will not accept it as skin. It just looks too unnatural and too weird. It doesn't look like living skin. I mean, if you're painting zombies or other undead, you can get away with it. But otherwise, if it's something living, it has to be a little touch of rosiness there somewhere. In the shading, at least, which is where it is on these guys. But otherwise, they're not too special. Just a lot of different browns, some metallics, a little more color on this leader type. Give him a purple cloak and a green tunic, just to make him stand out a little bit. Couldn't really think of much to do with this symbol on his chest, painted like an eye, the metal. This thing, it's kind of weird. I couldn't understand what this was. This little loop on this. I thought at first it was going to be like a continuation of this rope, but no, it's not attached to that in any way. And as I looked at the metal version of this figure, and it's not a loop on that one; it's a hook. It's like a pickaxe, or you know, yeah, something nasty like that. But I felt like I didn't want to modify the model too much by cutting it apart and making it into a hook, so I just painted it like something metallic, so it's like kind of a weird axe blade, maybe. Oh well. Oops. That's them anyway. I did not finish as much. Well, I have a couple of more things to show you. Let's move on to that. Yeah, so I finished off these 2 guys as well. Just a hero and a villain from Dungeons and Dragons. This is Igwil's Treasure set from Gale Force 9. We have just a dwarf fighter or cleric with a warhammer and a shield. And, you know, my attempt... I made some rather sharp highlights on his tabard, the blue, but softer transitions on the cloak. I wanted to do something pale for a change. Hopefully it turned out okay. Reasonably happy with him. Now the vampire was difficult in a number of ways. First way was this hair. It's sculpted with some extremely deep recesses that are very small, like small pinholes into the material, sort of. Filling in those was really difficult. I had to go over several times with a thin paint to get some black down in there, and so there was no white showing through. The skin was difficult, the face was difficult, the sculpt didn't really help me with the eyes, but yeah, they look a bit gothy now, I suppose, but hey, it's a vampire, that might be appropriate. And yeah, no other problems worth mentioning with this one. Yeah, it worked out fine. And finally, this week, and somewhat surprisingly perhaps, I completed all of the trogs. Wish I could say I was happy with them, but there were some issues, and it's not so much with the models, even though some of the sculpting is a little unclear, especially regarding the items they're carrying on their belts on their backs. They have some. They're carrying some. Some of them have fishes that they've caught. Some of them have small octopi, but they're not very distinct and difficult to paint. But that's not the main issue. The main issue is my own fault, and it's because they're called trogs. I got the idea I would paint them as troglodytes from D&D. Now, troglodytes in D&D are described as being gray. They're lizard people who live underground in caves, thus troglodytes. That's what it means, cave dweller. And they're completely gray. That's kind of boring. So I had to spice it up a little bit by adding some color to their crests and so forth. But overall, I tried to stay to that. Turns out gray is kind of a dull color to paint. And that's why I tried to add splashes of color in other cases, like, well, for example, the croc skin this guy is wearing is an obvious, easy one. Some of the others, I tried to add some color to their equipment, but they came out in total very, very dark and dull. And that's not a good idea in minis. But, you know, I don't... My general philosophy is I never repaint stuff. If something doesn't turn out perfect, well, I learned from the mistake, and I think about that moving forward, and don't repeat the mistake. So, okay, lesson learned, don't paint minis largely in dark, dull colors, because it's going to look dark and dull. But, you know, especially since these are rank and file mobs that I might throw up on the gaming table, if the paint job isn't perfect, no matter, it doesn't matter. I got through them. That's the important part. Let's move on to works in progress. Here we go with works in progress. This guy looks really odd right now, but I've actually done some more work on him, and he looks really, really light and bright and rough, but this is because I've done some extreme highlighting. It's going to be toned down with the glazes to soften things up a bit, but at least I'm working on him again. And he's not just on the sidelines as he's been for weeks, maybe months now. I forget which. I started on this, the Mercury Rhymer DVD project, and what I've done here is mostly just prime and go through the stage, which watching the DVD reminded me of just pouring some black down into crevices and hard to reach places. So just in case I can't reach them later with the actual color, then there's some black down there, so there's not white showing through. And I've started base coating the cloak for Tywin. That is the first demonstration of actual painting on the DVDs, is base coating, highlighting, and shading this red cloak. And, well, we'll move on from there. And I've also primed and, in some cases, given a light base coat to the remaining what are they? Hordes models. Yes, from Privateer. Now there's 4 models here, 2 metal and 2 plastic, and the metal ones I had no issue at all with. This one was a rather complex multi-piece kit, but it went together very well. Everything fit like a glove, so to speak. I did some pinning of this hand and the head. Not this arm though, because I don't think it required it. Not the body either, but I pinned the feet to the base. This had a sort of integral pin, this backpack thingy, the quiver. As with the Druid, no issues. She looks really sloppy right now. I've been experimenting with some inks. This is all going to get painted over, but it's a fun model. Then we get to the plastics. Now, these are, as I understand it, some of the early plastic models that Privateer put out. And I don't know, does anybody else have experience with these kits? Did they get better with time? Because these are not good. These were the fit for plastic, hard plastic miniatures. I don't think I've ever seen fit that was that bad. I mean, there can't have been any quality control here. There was like putting the 2 heads together for this guy. There was a gigantic gap in between there that I had to fill in. And here, this guy. So the sword and the hands are 1 piece, and then the arms are 2 pieces, and they all have to go together and attach to the body more or less at the same time. And it just wouldn't fit. There was no way to make it go together well. I had to, I mean, this shoulder here is all green stuff. I just barely glued it together and then covered it all up. It was hopeless. And I realized I got the angle a bit wrong. He should have the hands a bit lower, but that really doesn't affect the positioning, because the hands can only attach to the arms one way. It's very clear how are supposed to fit. But if you do that the way it's aligned in the kit, you just can't attach the shoulders. It just doesn't work. So I had to fake it. So, yeah, very disappointed. But oh well, the fact that he looks very weirdly proportioned now perhaps doesn't matter, because it's not supposed to be a human in any case. Oh well. We'll get to work on it and make something happen regardless. But with so little on my table, I need some new projects, right? Oh, and one more complaint. Plastic cement doesn't work on these freaking models. This little piece, okay, get into the light. This piece was I glued on before priming, and it just fell off. It, you know. And I noticed this in some of the other pieces. The rest is super glued on, actually. It's only this and maybe, yeah, I think it's mostly this piece that was plastic cemented. I'm gonna have to redo this. I mean, freaking heck. What sort of plastic is this? For my next project, I've started cleaning up some of these ladies that arrived last week. Mostly some red box minis, and I've picked out the ones that I think are supposed to be elves. Here's 3 of them, and here's another 3. And the reason I think that they're elves is, one, they're thinner, slighter than most of the other women. Also, for some reason, they pack them with 20mm bases. I've replaced those with 25s, but anyway. Continuing with the non-human theme, I think she's supposed to be a half-orc. She came with a 25mm base. And then there were 3 small ladies,
which I don't know. I mean, the general design of the equipment and the look of them makes me think they're supposed to be dwarves. But here's the thing. Redbox makes true scale minis. When compared to minis from other companies, these are too tiny, too dainty to be dwarves. But you could always say they're like halflings or gnomes. I mean, even halflings from a company like Reaper tend to be heroic scale, tend to be chunky enough that they need a 25mm base. I'm going to use 20s for these. And finally, I picked out 3 of the hassle-free minis. The ones I had duplicates of. I went through all of them and found out that there were only 3 duplicates, possibly thrown in to be a bonus for the long wait, I suppose. One of them is Helen, and she doesn't have her arms here. She's got a spear and a shield that I'm going to attach later. But these 2 were single piece. These are 2 of the Skyclad. This is Skyclad. This one is called Katarina, and this one is Shaman Bodhi. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. And on these I had to do a little bit of cleanup. And mostly these were all extremely clean casts, didn't need a lot of cleanup. But on the ones with a lot of exposed skin, I did some filing just to smooth it down an extra bit. so it yeah, so it looks actually like skin and not like it has seam lines or pock marks in it. But these Redbox minis were quite good. Yeah, so I'm gonna get started prepping these. I've so far only, like I said, I've cleaned off any flashing mold lines, and done my usual water and washing up liquid to clean off any dust or dirt or grease or whatever. I'm gonna base them, prime them, and well, we'll see how far I get by next week.
Seems the mailman is on a roll now. Got a Kickstarter last week, and this is a Kickstarter that arrived this week. Not the one I was expecting. This is one that's actually on time. It was supposed to be sent out in June, and it was. So it arrived here in early July. That's unexpected. I've got another one coming that's a bit delayed. And I also have a shipment of stuff from a store that's could possibly arrive next week. Not sure. Which Kickstarter is this? Well, it is a large collection of, let's see, we have an example here. Ducks. This is the Quack Keep Kickstarter for a collection of ducks and anthropomorphic duck miniatures and an adventure by Janelle Jacques called Quack Keep. Janelle Jacques is, of course, the originator of classic scenarios like Canvas of Thracia, Dark Tower, and Duck Tower. This, I'm not sure if this is a duck. This is maybe a chaos duck. And here's another ducky warrior. These are all very, very funny and interesting, and I don't have an immediate use for them, but ducks are an important part of many game settings, like Glorantha. So that's the reason I got them. There's a total of 23 minis in here. I'm not going to show you them all. I'll do that when it's time to paint them. But as you can see, the sculpting is very nice. The casting is good. There's a little bit of mold lines and flashing, but you know,
it's going to be reasonably easy to clean off. Did I say that I got 23 minis in total from this Kickstarter? Yeah. So that sets me back a little while. It's not as many. I didn't paint as many as 23 minis this week, so my statistics are going backwards this week. I'll hopefully make up for it in the coming weeks. But you know, pretty soon everything I've ordered will have arrived. Anyway, that's it for this week. Hopefully it was interesting. I will see you again in a week. Until then, click like, subscribe if you haven't done so, comment, and until next week, this is Dakian, signing off.